It's a language. So you're trying to communicate something by playing this instrument.
I feel like when you're approaching a solo, correct me if I'm wrong, the tools that you have are your pentatonics.
We're talking about a guitar solo.
A guitar solo. And I'm talking about you personally.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about besides pentatonics and your triads? And how to use your triads in creative ways, whether you're superimposing something.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about seventh chords and those arpeggios?
Yeah.
Or are you mostly thinking about your triads and how to use them?
Well, for me, and I think most professionals, like I said, we've played a lot at this point, my whole life. And so since I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I've never done anything else. I've never had a job. I'm a lifer. I consider myself a lifer, a musician, And so I've gotten those fundamentals out of the way. Now I still will work on things, and harmonizing the major scale and just things like that are great, exercises to keep doing. But I've gotten a lot of those fundamentals out of the way when I was younger. And so now what I'm focusing on is just the sheer musicality of what's going on in real time, and looking, you're hearing chord changes come from a mile away. It's like driving a car. You don't want to look right down at the pavement when you're going 80 miles an hour, or you're going to run into everything. You got to be, the faster you're going, the farther out in front of you got to look. And so the ear is such an important part of this. And so I'm just hearing like it's like this. If I was going to sit in with a band in Kansas City and I'm walking to a bar and somebody goes, "Hey man, let's get Guthrie up to play one." Happens all the time. Okay. All right, guys, let's have some fun. What are we going to play? Well, I don't have any information at that point. I don't know what these guys are going to do. It could be a reggae song. It could be a blues shuffle. It could be an original that a guy wants to do. So until I am getting some information, I don't know anything yet. And so I'll go like, "Okay, guys, hey man, let's keep it easy and fun. Let's do a blues progression or something, or play a, standard something, some standard swinging doors or some country song or a blues song or some funk tune or something." And that way, the changes that are coming. But if a guy he goes, "Well, man, we're gonna do this original," I go, "Okay." Now I don't know what's coming. Okay, he throws some crazy chords. Well, then I'm not gonna play anything until I hear the chord progression go around a couple times. And if I don't know the song, I'm probably not going to play anything, because you can't make a mistake if you don't play anything.
That's true, right?
Right.
But then you look like a loser, don't you?
Well, and it's so much like the language. It's a language. So you're trying to communicate something by playing this instrument, or any instrument. So I equate music to language, cooking, and exercise. Those three things are so parallel, because with exercise, you're not going to see any results until you get up off the couch and start moving. If you don't put that, as much time as you put into this thing, that's what you're going to get out of it. And with the cooking, it's like, if I read a cookbook this thick, but I don't ever cook anything, and I know I've memorized that cookbook, but I've never gotten my hands dirty, then I still suck as a cook.
Yeah,
and
right.
I do suck as a cook, by the way. But then the other parallel.
I've had your salmon. You make a good salmon.
I can make some salmon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't starve if I had some salmon around, or some chicken. But I'm not going to be able to cook a bunch of stuff. But then the other part of it is just the language. I mean, and so big picture is, you've got this alphabet. You've got all these notes on this instrument. Well, you're trying to put together words and phrases and sentences and tell a story that makes sense. And so if I was trying to think about the notes on the guitar while I was playing, or the triads or anything like that, I'd be stumbling all over the place. It'd be like me talking to you and trying to think of every letter of every word while I was saying it. Well, I wouldn't be able to say anything, because if I said SAID, you got to think, who could do that? So that's how I equate that to playing the guitar. You got to be able to just get past that and start talking.
Right.
And the faster it's moving, the faster you got to be able to talk and keep up, right? And so you're trying to put these musical phrases and say something to somebody on this. If I picked up this guitar right now and played a little phrase, it would make sense to you. But if I just played a bunch of jumbled notes that didn't mean anything, it wouldn't say anything.
Right.
And so it's exactly like speaking a language and communicating.
Right.
You're communicating through music.
Before we move on,
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Before we move on, what were the concepts from the Danny Gann video that you really stole?
Just some hillbilly jazz approaches to playing music. And to answer your question, ultimately, with what you just said, is the first thing I hear is what's the information I'm getting? Is this like a, what's the tempo? What's the groove? What's the feel? What are the chords? Is it a minor feel? Is it a dark sound? Is it something that's happy? Or is there vocals? What are we doing here? Okay, well, then we're going to be able to jump right in. As soon as we get the information we need, then we're off to the races. So the more information you have, the more confident I'm going to be to be able to play something that matters, right? And so with the trio, I'm at that point, man, I'm just hanging on with my my bandmates. The drummer and the bass player are amazing. So I'm hanging on with those guys and hoping that they kick my ass into the next gear, And so at that point, I'm just trying to play something that is ultimate soul and feel that's inside of me to get out through that fingerboard and through that speaker into the atmosphere, And so it's not about. I don't really care about any commercial success with the music industry or any of that shit that goes along with it. I want to play music that makes me feel really, really good. And if you want to come along for the ride, then come on. But I'm not going to chase any bullshit.